A pleasant morning to one and all. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all for the webinar on Global Nanotech for Future Advancements, organized by the Department of Physics, Lila College. The lockdown, in a way, has created an opportunity for online learning and teaching. The head of the department, Dr. S. Jerome Das, will now brief us on the dynamics of the webinar. Over to Dr. Jerome Das.
Good morning to everyone here. It's a wonderful occasion to meet you all on this platform. Happy that department has come forward to organize a program of very important in the recent days, Global Nanotech for Future Advancements. I take this occasion to thank the management for giving us an opportunity and also thank Dr. Cynthia for taking the lead to put this program into a successful path. I take this occasion to thank Dr. S. Gokul Raj, who has accepted our invitation to deliver information related to future advancements in this period. I am sure all participants will have very good time. Thank you, Ananda.
Thank you, sir, for that nice introduction. We have with us an eminent speaker for the day, Dr. S. Gokul Raj, Assistant Professor, C. Kandasaidu Naidu College for Men, a unit of Pachapas Trust, to give his inputs on the future advancements of nanotechnology. The next 50 minutes, he will take us to the world of nanotechnology and brief us on its advancements. I now request Dr. Gokul Raj to take his platform.
Welcome, eminent peoples, students, teachers, community, researchers, and everyone. I'd like to thank the management of Lila College, the Department of Physics, headed by Professor Jerome Das, and Angelina Madam, who heads the Shift 2, and Cynthia Madam, who is an instrumental person to make this seminar a successful one. I would like to welcome all of you on behalf of organizers to this session of Global Nanotech for Future Advancements. So let me brief her. Okay. So myself, I'm coming from Kandaswamy Naidu College for Men, Ananagar, Chennai, which is under Pachapas Trust, and it was formed some 52 years ago by the will and trust of Kandaswamy, who donated his wealth towards the education of the people. Now, coming to directly to the field of nanotechnology, I'd like to quote Richard Feynman, who is a pioneer in the field of lower dimension works, and then I'll pass on to the sessions. So when he was delivering a lecture in 1965 at California University of Technology, he made a statement that there is a plenty of room at the bottom, which paved a way for a greater vision towards the nanomaterial. In this session, I'll be talking about the past, the present, and the future. So basically, the term nanotechnology was coined by none other than Taniguchi. So it was in the year 1974 he made this, but it was later popularized by Eric Drexler, who coined the term nanotechnology. And later on, we found many applications as of today. So when we say about nanomaterials, I want to know, where do we stand where do I stand in terms of materials? You see that we have plenty of materials for the area of aeronautical, dental materials, biological, bone materials, then in the field of electromagnetic, automobile, mechanical, and in other various other applications. So first we should know we have come to this level of technology. See, then you see that there are plenty of materials in terms of biomaterials for bone, marrow, tissue engineering, and in different areas. Let me give me a simple example. As far as this is a peak summer, everyone will be using your UV absorbent material. Of course, the UV absorbent material is made up of zinc oxide. Zinc oxide is a wide band gap material which absorbs the UV material, so UV light. So in this case, you see that the size effects plays a role, and I'll come to the size effect in the later stage. Now coming back to the various materials and its applications. First, let us stick on to the materials. Where do I stand? Then we'll go to the past and the present. You see that we have variety of materials in terms of various frequencies, in terms of kilohertz to megahertz to gigahertz. When I want to compare it, the need of the hour is not only medicine, but also in terms of information technology, heavy industries, communication. So these are the wider areas. If you see the sensors, water treatment, energy applications, these are the wide range of applications where currently we have developed a lot and the present work is going on. So now these applications are widely divided into medicine. For example, cancer cell detection, drug delivery. In later part, I will tell you about the material aspects and also in terms of virus and bacterial effect, how it's going to affect. Then in terms of food, cosmetics, you see that we have environmental effect. Then in terms of technological industries, coating, additive improvements, then chemical industries, automobile. When we say about human and health and environment, we have pesticides. Of course, the need of the hour is migrations of insects, birds, which cause heavy damage to the crops. Then you see that there is a technological improvement in terms of solar panel. So these are the various aspects. Now I've divided this part into this talk into three parts. First, I'll give you a few slides about the past historical perspectives. So historical perspectives, how do I compare an historical perspective? So let me compare the India. In India, when we consider the 4th century and the 6th century, it was widely Mauryan Empire when we consider in the North India, northern. So before that also, when around 260 to 330 BC, these Mauryan empires built on long, very large tombs and erected many buildings. When we kept on investigating, recent researchers found that these various aspects such as metallurgical, mechanical aspects, and also in terms of molecular engineering, unknowingly or knowingly, people have contributed. But only thing is there were no much tool to investigate about the microstructure. So what is the size, and the size of these things were not but to the fact that there were very large nanomaterials in terms of the 1st and 2nd century, even it went on to the 5th century. So when we consider the Middle East, you see the Persia. In Persia, we have many tombs. Even the Persians created some kinds of batteries. So they used it for medicinal purposes. So these are mostly found in Palvi language. So the Babylons in the 1700 BC, they also developed engineering in terms of water pumps, everything, which consists of many smaller tiny particles. And of course, they were not aware of the fact that it also belonged to the nanomaterial. So when we go for a Roman Empire, from east to west, now we are going for a Roman Empire. We see the Roman Empire, the cup which is in, now it's in London, the Lycurgus cup, which passes a gold silver alloy. You see that when the light differs, now you see that the color differentiates. So this is how the change in color by the modification. When people investigated on it, it contained on gold silver. Of course, in the Faraday cell also, during the 17th century, people were able to identify gold and silver nanoparticles. So when we go for a stained glasses, in terms of, this was from one of the articles from medieval period. So you see that it consists of a, it consists of a silver nanoparticle, where you can see that I have named it as number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You see the particle sizes when it was investigated. All the olden churches and Roman empires, when we kept on investigating, the blue colored, which is in the 530 to 550 nanometer, it's a visible region. You can see that these colored, it is of 40 nanometer, 80 nanometer, 100 nanometer, and its sizes varies from gold spheres, silvers, and very different. You see, these are the some of the olden and medieval day periods where people were able to synthesize these type of nanomaterials. So historically, I want to summarize that there were, even in the India, while doing Ayurvedic medicine, people were able to use these nanomaterials. The use of nanotechnology evolved in the medieval period, but without the proper knowledge of that. Of course, they didn't have the technological as this much in advancement, but they were using the gold and silver nanoparticles. The scientific applications of the colloidal particles only reported way back to 16th and 17th century. And when the microstructure and nanostructure particles were able to determine, people were able to successfully visualize it. So now we are in this 21st century where we are visualizing. So these are some of the historical aspects. Now, present day technology. Let me come to the present day technology which is adapted. Now you see that we do have crystalline, non-crystalline fingerprint region. Of course, these are used for electrical, electromagnetic, various metallurgical applications, medical and chemical field. They are applied in various fields. Now these advancements we were able to visualize due to the fact that the revolution happened in the 1940s. Of course, in the year 1947, we could easily remember, it's a independence day, independence year for us. So Baden and Scotland and Britain, they developed bipolar point transistors, so for which they were awarded Nobel Prize. And of course, Baden was the only one who was awarded Nobel Prize twice. So John Baden, because he was awarded Nobel Prize in the 1970s for his BCS theory on superconductors. Of course, we are not going to compare it. Then Boolean algebra. Boolean, who worked in the 18th century, his mathematical and philosophical knowledge and logical reasoning paved the way for this recent technology. So at this juncture, definitely I would like to remember those words. Now we'll come into the material aspects. See, these material science is nothing but a combination of physical, mechanical, electrochemical, and technological applications. So these various fields, when we combine together, it forms as a material science. So let me give you an example. You see that we are seeing a day-to-day life, ceramics, glasses, graphites, crystalline, metals, polymers, everything we are working out. Now you see these materials combine together. For example, metals, ceramics, alloys. We do have ceramics, alloys, polymers. So the combination of these materials have paved the way for the material science. Of course, for just a glimpse of it, I have given a gold medal, silver medal, and bronze medal of an Olympic medal, which accounts for almost 97-98% of the original medals. So the classification, these forms as a composite material. Hence, the composites are a form of class of materials. Of course, why do we want to have a composite material? Composite material forms an integral part of this nanomaterial. Without the composite technology, nothing would have been improved as this much. Now we see we have various kinds of metals, alloys, ceramics, and polymers. So these classification of material, of course, has brought it. And of course, people would have watched in 18 and 90s, and they would have watched the Terminator movie, liquid metal, transformation of metals into different shapes. Of course, I want to compare it for a glimpse. Right? So now, classes of property. I have a variety of material. The material differs in various aspects. So how can I classify it? Now we have a mechanical, thermal aspects, electrical, environmental. So what is this mechanical aspect? So now I need to have a strong material where I need to have a hardness, fatigue strength, toughness. Suppose if we are unable to use it for a longer time, of course its fatigue will be very lesser. Then thermal. Suppose we are using our laptop, we have our hard disk and thermal. Due to thermal heating, the hard disk may get into failure mode. So to avoid it, we should have a proper thermal expansion coefficient. Then next thing is an electrical and magnetic part. Now you see that if we are going to have a flux around a magnetic core coil, definitely it is going to affect the whole of the system. Now, after doing all these things, we have to consider the environmental aspects. See, the environmental aspects, without looking after the environmental aspect, definitely we will end up, we can make a product, but we will end up in a disaster mode. So all these things should be considered. Now for the production of these things, I need to have a material. Now next, coming to the nanoscale. Why do I need to look at the nanoscale? What is the need to go for a nanoscale? You see, when I have a blood cell, it is around a micrometer. Then we see a human hair. We are going from a transformation from a millimeter to a micrometer red blood cell, then to a protein and nuclear nanotubes, which is of size 5 to 10 nanometer. When we go for a DNA nanostructure, it is 1 nanometer. And when we go for an atomic structure, you see the sizes gets reduced. Now we are dealing with particle sizes where my sizes gets reduced to 1 to 2 nanometer, where I can work on DNA nanostructures. So now all these, of course, I'll give a glimpse of a biological material later on. So we see that we are having a 1/1,000,000th of it and 1/1,000,000th of a meter. So such a smaller size, I'm going to have a particle. Now, if I want to deal with a bacteria which is of micron size, then to a nanomaterial sized viruses, I need to have a nano probe to investigate it. So without any of the tool, suppose if I want to have a smaller particle, I need to have a smaller tongue to handle it. So what is a generally nanometer? So everyone talks about nanometal. So what is this nanometal? Of course, obviously it is a ceramic powder, just like a normal powder. You look at it, even we look at a face powder, lycopodium powder or any powders, it will be of micron size. Now we are going to reduce the sizes. It is just as simple as that. I'm going to grind it. So I can either break away the particles from bigger sizes to smaller sizes. I'm breaking down the particles, or else I can always build up a molecule to the nano sizes. So it is nothing but a simple breaking of molecules from a bigger size to a smaller size, or assembly of particles to make it at a bigger size of nanometer. So for this lower particle sizes, I can use a chemical method. Of course, the chemistry people are much involved in it. Now as an interdisciplinary, biological, physics and chemistry, this is an interdisciplinary subject. Without a basic knowledge of all these things, we won't be able to get into further. So for the basics thing, I have just made a comparison. So now we are going to have a basic solution which consists of nanocrystalline molecule. Now we are going to build up this molecule by mixing of some of the chemical reactants. These reactants form together to form it as a nanocrystalline material. This is one method. Of course, I can use the solution later on by means of precipitation, by burning the samples, or we can get it a nanometal. This is called bottom-up approach. Then top-down approach. How do I make it? I can make it like this is a ball milling apparatus where I have shown a graphical representation. The balls inside it were put it and just crushed and grinded. So this is how we make a nanometal. So the nanomaterials can be either produced by a mechanical or in terms of smaller particles to bigger particles. Then there are some other materials where I can make the samples into vapors. This is one such chemical deposition. So the deposition, I'm having a furnace, I can heat it. By heating, the material gets evaporated. So the evaporated samples can be fabricated into films. Now the other traditional methods such as electrodeposition. Electrodeposition, I can make it 2 copper plates or any other cathode and anode plate so that I can dissolve the solution. The solution can be split up into cationic part and anionic part. The positive and negative charges sticks on to the corresponding plate where I can have a film kind of sample. For example, the glass coatings and other electrochromic and chromic materials have these type of electrodeposition techniques. Now you see that, for example, we have given a gold. You see that gold, when we go on making into a smaller sizes, as the sizes varies, its particle sizes keeps on varying. Now you see that the color of the sphere, it just varies from a gold. Actually, gold itself is not yellowish in color. When we keep on changing the sizes, its color will change. Now, some of the physical properties. So what are the physical properties that would help? We have large surface area, large surface atoms, and reduced imperfections. So as I mentioned it earlier, the physics, chemistry, and biological aspects are combined together where we can work on these nanomaterials. So I have given you a few examples. In later part, I am giving you a few of glimpses about the biological aspects and of course about the current trends. Now we have catalytic, electrical, magnetical, mechanic, optical, and biological. You see, we have variety of applications. If we see that electrical materials, we have ceramic, magnetic composites. We have magnetic material, optical material. Optical materials are used for cancer therapies and other therapy materials. So optical therapies. So we have large scale. Now you see the computing in terms of when people started using these computers in 70s and 80s, you look at the picture of it. Of course, it was taken from website. You see, such a large size was the use of computers because of the fact on those days they were using walls and tubes. But now we are using semiconductor technology, and due to this semiconductor technology, we were able to meet even in the peak hour of this corona. We were able to interact. I think there are around 350 participants. We were able to connect. So this technological revolution has taken place only after the advent of the nanotechnological applications, such as these micro and nanotechnology microchips. So now I have given you a past which existed, the present we are using, and what would be its future. So where are its lacuna? Where can I find this technological application that can suit us? So this is how the graduates, there are many graduates and postgraduates program being taught in the nanotechnological level, but please be sure that your goal in achieving this nanotechnological depends upon the application, commercial application where you are going to. Of course, any research and development has to end up in an end product to meet the consumer applications. I cannot simply take a nanomaterial and synthesize it and just research, make a research publication and just drop it. No. For example, if we consider the solar cell applications, we have silicon solar panels. Nowadays, we are using silicon solar panels. They are using chemical vapor deposition and other methods for creating channels and also BJT. Okay. So like this, we were able to make these nanomaterials for wide range of applications, for tissue engineering, for drug delivery, for medical applications. So these things we are going to. Now, I'll just give a smaller introduction of the carbon nanotubes. Carbon nanotubes is one of the important revolution, and it was discovered by Ijima. Ijima is an electrical engineering scientist who accidentally discovered while discovering this while fabricating this transition electron microscope TEM. So they do have a nanometer size hexagonal panels, which is a closed panel. I'll show you the shape. So these graphites are nothing but a simple carbon material. The carbon material which is stacked in terms of layer. You see that we are having a stacked layer of carbon either in planar structure or else in a bulky structure. I can have any. See, this is 001 plane along c-axis, and it is perpendicular view. This is horizontal view and a perpendicular view. These graphite nanosheets can be formed in terms of planar sheets. I'll show you the sheets. It can be rolled it and it can be made it into balls. Such kind of, this is a real-time TEM, transmission electron microscopic picture of the carbon nanotube. You see that these materials can be fabricated and can be designed to the desired level, right? So now I have carbon material, so nothing to worry. These are the simple carbon structures. So each at the corner, it's a hexagonal shaped carbon material. It's like a honeycomb structure. You might have seen the honeycomb, right? So it's a honeycomb structure. So now these have a cylindrical, I can frame it as a cylindrical, spherical, or else any of the shapes. Now, what about its properties? Now, if I consider the properties, it can be used as a efficient electrical conductors for thermal materials, and the strength. If I want to compare the strength, you see the modulus tensile strength and its density. It is so high that it can be used as a common material. Now, when we come for a reactivity, for example, in chemical aspects, I can always bind the graphene or graphite material to the material of diazolam, any of the salts, so that I can activate the compound at the edges, at the spheres, at the cylinders. Then next to the toxicity level, of course, these carbon nanomaterials is at the preliminary stages, but still its biological aspects has to be looked over for its toxicity. Of course, carbon doesn't carry any toxic material. It's a simple carbon material. Even you are using water filter carbon in all these real-time applications, that's nothing harm. But the only thing is how much it is possible for its use in terms of applications. Now these are the some, you see that I can use it as a armchair, zigzag. These are single walled and these are multi-walled. I can always attach any of our group. You see, I can break the chain here. I can attach any of the compounds here, desired compound, so that I can use it for our applications. So these are the various forms of the carbon nanotubes that I can use, right? Now, coming to the applications, these nano applications, how can it play a role in future? Of course, everyone will ask, sir, today I am having a mobile phone, I'm having a tab, we can interact it. Technology has improved this much. What is the next stage? No, this is a technological revolution which we have created in these 20-30 years. Of course, there are other aspects, for example, environmental aspects. For example, the lithium ion batteries. Lithium ion batteries carry a very good charge. Of course, we are using a rechargeable lithium ion batteries, but the future has to depend upon the environmental. Whatever in the next half a century we are going to deal, we are going to preserve this planet for the next millennium. So for this, when we use the lithium rechargeable batteries, we use it whenever we discard it, we throw it in a garbage. So what happens? It goes to the garbage area, and it's, of course, all these lithium ion batteries create a hazardous material. We don't have a perfect mechanism to dispose it. So what is the possible next generation technology? It is field emission, for example, hydrogen storage technology. These nanotechnologies, we should be capable of creating a hydrogen storage devices. So what is the advantage of these devices? I can drive my vehicles, I can recharge my mobiles, I can have a rechargeable laptops, we can have a home with a hydrogen storage devices with the electric powered, like a solar powered. Of course, solar power is one of the important area where technology revolution is going on. We are having 14 to 16% of efficiency, but its efficiency has to be increased. So similarly, you should find other materials, right? So then next, we are using a field emission. These materials, of course, we are having our laptops, monitors, screens. We are having some of the rare earth materials which can affect the environment when it is thrown in the garbage. So we need to have a characteristic material where these lithium ion batteries and storage materials can be developed such a way that I can have environmental friendly applications. Please note that hereafter, whatever the technological revolution we are going to carry out, we need to look over the environmental aspects. In all these, of course, in all these times, people has thought about environmental, but when this greenhouse effect and this ozone layer gets a large dent, of course, it is our responsibility as a researcher, as a teaching community, as a student, to bring it to the next level, whether it is environmental pollution through industries, whatever it is, we need to look over the future aspects where we can reduce it. So for the industrial applications, we can always have a recycling mechanism. For this, if you are using a gas material, we need to have a conversion mechanism, but that conversion mechanism needs to be at the nano level. Without it nano level, the gaseous molecules won't be condensed at that level. Now going for the biological application, you see, I have a biological material, we have a blood cells, whatever the cell tissue in our body, it is at the nano level. So now the biological aspects we need to look over, right? You see, I have given a small tip of a atomic force microscopy. You see the tip of it, the smaller tip, it is around 20 nanometer, and the needle point, you can see that it is around 2 nanometers. So now this kind of nanotechnology has evolved at this stage. Now with the help of the present technology, we should be able to reach the other biological aspects. And so now we'll highlight some of the technology. Now you see that we are having a paper battery. This is at the research level. So with the help of a super capacitor, we were able to have a flexible batteries, right? So now the next is artificial muscles. So I'm giving a wide range of examples for these things. So artificial muscles for a biological application. Then in terms of thermocells, which can have, it can convert waste heat from industrial plants, pipelines. These are the technology that needs to be carried out to the next generation. You see that we are having a conventional system, but this conventional system does not convert 100% to the next level, because at the micron level they were unable to capture the nano level of gases. So next is catalysis. So it can greatly influence the reduce of the large pollution due to the gases. So catalysis is an important area where chemistry, a lot of chemists are working, chemists and chemical engineers are working to reduce the gaseous poison, right? So these are the some of the various aspects that the future has to face. Now, let me come to the need of the hour. So I thought that while dealing with global aspects in the nanotechnological level, at least a scenario where we stand, uh, it should be realized, and what are the possible aspects and what are the possible future we are going to face. And this is, of course, this 2020 has this earth has faced a lot of hurdles. I'll just give you one such example, which is a coronavirus. Of course, even my 6-year-old kid used to say about coronavirus. Such a large impact has created in the minds of right from the younger generation to the older generation. Now we'll just go into the biological aspects of the current scenario. You might have seen every day. So someone would have thought, sir, already we are very much obsessed with the corona in TV, newspaper, and here also you are telling the same. No, of course, it is our responsibility. The graduates, postgraduates, whether it is physics, chemistry, mathematical, or modeling people, it's their own it's their responsibility to bring the technology to the common man. So everyone, of course, know this SARS. It is a severe acute respiratory syndrome. It's a SARS. It's a kind of virus. Coronavirus, it's a kind of respiratory virus. Now you see that these virus were not discovered in this recent time. Of course, it was branded well before 50 years. The corona means we are having sun, the surface around the sun, it is called corona region. Corona region means very hot region, which is like a flower shaped structure. So this term was coined in 1968. Of course, the one who discovered this is Julia Almeida. She was the one who was working in St. Thomas Hospital in London. See, please note that she is not a research scientist. Of course, she joined the laboratory as a technician. And with the knowledge of a technician, she improved her knowledge in Glasgow Royal Institute, and through St. Thomas Hospital, she was a very good researcher, and about the knowledge of this virus, she went on to discover these virus corona. So this type of corona was discovered. Of course, this coronavirus 19 COVID is a name which has given due to the epidemic situation, which has converted into pandemic. And of course, where people say that it is a Wuhan Chinese virus, but these viruses existed long before 50 years, right? So in the 80s, she helped to take the novel picture of HIV virus also. So she was a pioneer in the virus. Of course, even after 30 years, 40 years after finding the picture of the virus, we were unable to corner the medicine for HIV virus. It's a long way to go. And she died in 2007. And even after 13 years, you see that the situation has arisen. So the improvement in the technology is taking in the phases. Now let me give you a glimpse of the previous viruses. For example, right from the earliest centuries, you see the plague and black death, smallpox, and I think everyone who is in the 20s and 30s would have had a scare on their hands of them. They would have had a smallpox. You see, during the 15th century, 56 million people died there. So these viruses, at that time, there were no medicine. But you see that till date, after finding of HIV virus, almost 35 million lives has lost. When we see this Spanish and Russian swine flu viruses, it is around 40 million, and Russian flu it is 1 million. So when this was reported in Science magazine, and when I took this literature survey, it is on March 15th, where around 6,500 people were affected. But as on date, I have noted it. It is 3.6 lakh people who has died in this corona region worldwide. You see that almost 3.3 million. It is around 3.6 lakh people has lost their lives. So all these days, there were not much of medicinal aspects. So the large deaths due to this pandemic situation. We need to concentrate on the biological aspects. So far, we have crossed much technological application such that around 350 to 400 people are sitting alive, and we are just watching this through our modern technology. The technological revolution has brought to this level, the semiconducting technology, Silicon Valley revolution. But the next stage is towards the biological and also in terms of the medicinal aspects, right? So now, so this is a comparison. What is the death toll? And I have included the recent 3.6 lakh. Now, coming to the biological aspects, let me compare the 4 of the viruses, which is flu, COVID, SARS, and MERS. So now you see that. Now I'll just show you what is the size of it. Now you see the flu virus. The flu virus, it lives on the body for 1 to 4 days, whereas the coronavirus lives on the body up to 2 weeks. Now coming to the size effect, you see already I have compared. I'll just come for the comparison of sizes. Now you see the life of the SARS virus, which was there in 2002 to 3 and also in 2010, it is around 7 days, and the MERS virus, it is around 6 days. So now the virus can live for a longer time, but how do they live or sustain in our body for these longer days? It's a big question. It's $1 million question. Now let me come to the virus part. You see these viruses, it is around 100 to 600 nanometer. It varies in sizes. See, I cannot say that. See, I have my glass frame. It is some 4 centimeter to 6 centimeter. I can slightly change my glass frame so that I can change the shape of it. Maximum I can change is some 6 centimeter to that level. But now you see that the coronavirus, I'm having a virus where it is having a outer dendrical structure. You see our protein structure do have a similar structures. When they go for near our protein structure, DNA, RNA structures, the receptors, you can say this, it's like octopus dendrites, right? They stick on to the dendrites and split up the virus. The virus is just split up, and the RNA molecule is broken away. You see that. Now can we stop this at the moment? No. What happens whenever the virus sticks on to one body? For example, if I am from a southern region, let me consider we are from Tamil Nadu. We are getting a medicine for this kind of virus. Now it cannot be used for the same people who are living in the North India. They might be having a different RNA, DNA, RNA structure. The people in East, the people in West, each and every people will have their own DNA, RNA structure. Now you see that this coronavirus adapts to the situation and it changes, just like a chameleon, it changes its structure. Now you see that the receptor cells, these cells are broken away, and the toxicity, the toxicity is induced in the cell and destroys our whole of the tissue body. Now we need to have a mechanism either to stop at the earlier stages or at the middle stages. If it goes on to the third stage, it destroys our cell body. So this is how the receptor cells are being damaged. So as far as now itself, the DNA structure or RNA structure, according to this structure, the coronavirus modifies itself. So people are identified. Suppose even if they are testing a medicine, the testing of medicine, if some of the virology lab is being tested, I'll show you the virology labs, some of the labs which are there in the other countries also. So if the lab is tested there, if a person is tested for a London or an America, they have a different DNA RNA structure. When the medicine works out there, when we bring on the medicine here, now you see that in India we have different culture. Since we have different sector of people, north is south, we have our own food system, we have our own living conditions, summer, winter. You see, even now it's a hot winter here, hot summer here, whereas in the northeast there are a lot of moisture there. So these cells adapts itself to the conditions. So at present it will be a little bit difficult, but let us see how it can happen. Now you see that we have lot of laboratories in North America. Almost 40 laboratories are working. This is as per the data of March, which was published in Nature. And in Asia, we have only Australia and Asia, we have only 12 virology labs. You see, in Europe also there are only 12, and in China there are only 12 to 13. In North America they have 40 labs. The need of the hour is that we should have more virology research laboratories. So these laboratories should be having, we should be having a physicist, a chemist, material scientist, and a doctor. So it is a combined effort. Now coming to the side effect, as I was mentioning about it, you see that the corona, it is around 60 to 140 nanometer, and even sometimes it varies to 500 to 800 nanometer. You see the corona, whereas the pore size, I have compared the membrane with a water filter and RBC. This is just for a comparison, I have made it. So such kind of virus can take it transformation from some of the cells to, so this is how the some of E. coli bacteria. We have a bacteria research laboratory. As far as India is concerned, we have very lesser laboratories, almost 3 or 4 virology labs. So now I'll take another 10 minutes to wind up. So now the technological medicine, you see that how can it play a role? You see, these are the 10 nanometer structures, 10 to 20 nanometer structure, where I can have a drug release or sustained drug release, where it can directly infuse on the virus region and can destroy it. So we can fabricate a nanowires. These are the electron microscopic image. So we can fabricate a nanowires where I can have a blood sustained release. So you see that the virus, it is around nanometer size. So the need is the reach, the material has to go inside our body. Suppose if I'm going to have a drug cannot. Suppose I can inject, I can make an injection and a blood. The blood, it can travel it. How long it can travel? It can travel sometime. Suppose if I'm having a virus at a point nail finger, the nail finger alone should be treated in some of the cases. For example, some of the cancers, some people will be having a fingernail cancer, someone will be having a breast cancer, someone will be having a leg cancer. The cancer cells or else throat cancer, only that part will be affected. So we need to have a drug delivery system and a drug targeting system where it can go there inside our body, so that it can infuse it and it can kill the cells, right? So these are the various technologies that is available today. So now, as I mentioned earlier, want to summarize in the few minutes. Just you see that the need of the hour is that drug delivery for targeting material. Now silicon and gold particles are also used to, and also some of the nanomaterials which are tested are carbon nanotubes. So pesticides. So these are the some of the products. So some of the products also highlighted. The microscopic nature was discovered in the 18th century, and in these 2 centuries we have come to the nano level. The nano levels, when we want to bring it to the next level, to the medical technology, of course it should be in combination with the environmental applications. So what are the future possibilities? Of course, we do have energy, material testing, automobile, electronic, and biotechnology and pharmaceutical is one of the important aspect where we need to concentrate, right? So today's technology, of course, people might have seen this Nokia or else smaller chips. We have crossed from this level, from a micro chip to nano chip level. You see that the virus effects, which is of nano sizes, this technology should be able to reach to the virus level. So which is of its diameter around 20 to 50 nanometer. I'm saying about the diameter. If it is a lengthwise, if it is a spherical, it is around 100 nanometer. So we have a wide range of application where future awaits. If you are going to have a composite material, hydrogen storage device, the technological global scenario awaits for the supercapacitor. Microscopy, it's a big field where it can help both in the electromagnetic spectrum, in the electromagnetic region, electromagnetic material, and also in terms of biological material. So these are the some of the areas that we need to concentrate, right? So I think I would come to the ending stage. So thanks for listening, and I've listed out some of the properties in a tabular column. Some of the so the technological aspects. When we say about the technological revolution, of course, we cannot forget our late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. The technological revolution to this level, of course, during his tenure as a president, he made initiative, and this made to this level, right? So,
Thank you, sir.
thank you, ma'am.
We have a few questions from the participants.
Yes, madam.
We shall take some of them.
Yeah, definitely.
There is one participant who has asked, can nanotechnology be used for wireless connection and quantum computing?
Quantum computing, it is at a theoretical level. For example, the quantum computing, we are unable to go through 10 power minus 12 because the atom size is around 10 power minus 12 to 20 power minus 15 picometer, femtometer to picometer. So at present technology, we can, it is at the theoretical level, quantum computing. But the scenario, for example, when Feynman proposed about nanomaterial, we were having only micro-sized material. But when bipolar transistors were discovered, we were able to find it we were able to go it to the next level. So it all depends upon what is the instrument part that we are fabricating. So the fabrication level, we are having chemical vapor deposition and deposition techniques, which can go up to 10 power minus 9. That's it. So 10 power minus 10, 0.1 nanometer, we were able to identify. 0.01 nanometer, now there is a error percentage. So at this stage, it is at the theoretical level, but who knows, the person who made the question may be the next person to determine the quantum computing. The future awaits for him.
Oh, okay. Okay, sir. What is the contribution of nanoscience in using hydrogen fuel?
In hydrogen fuel, they are fabricating like a normal cathodic and anodic cell. We do fabricate a cell in the inside the fabricating cell. The evolution of hydrogen creates some energy. So that is a simple principle. Of course, there will be many questions. So since the hydrogen evolution doesn't affect any environmental aspect, people are much working towards it. And of course, BMW and Audi, they have a separate research center in terms of hydrogen fuel. If hydrogen fuel cell is a success, then definitely the fossil fuel, for example, we are using petrol and diesel. Petrol and diesel, they are called fossil fuel. Fossil fuels are formed inside the crater region in our earth. So in another 30-40 years, if this petrol and diesel is just vanishes, then we have to find out some of the technology. So for that technology, electromotive, the sector, automobile sector, it is working at the maximum level. Let us see how the technology works.
Okay, sir. When you're talking about zinc oxide, is zinc oxide used as UV absorbent or UV adsorbent?
It is UV absorbent. It absorbs.
Okay. Oh, it absorbs.
It absorbs. But whereas we are having, can you see my image? Can you see my image?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, if I'm going to have a sunscreen lotion, it is on my top of the surface, it absorbs. So the absorption phenomena keeps it intact. So our body will have an adsorption phenomena, so that the heat won't be affected. So it is at the surface phenomena.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think we have done with the questions. Thank you,
Is there
sir.
any?
As we have come to the end of this session, I take this opportunity to thank the management of Lila College for supporting us in this initiative. A special word of thanks to Reverend Father Rector, Father Principal, Father Secretary and Deputy Principal for motivating and reinforcing us in this venture. I thank my head, Dr. Jerome Das, without whose support and inspiration, this could not have been made possible. Thank you, sir. A special word of thanks to the Dean of Research, Dr. J. Madhavan, and Dean of Science, Dr. Merlin Shaila, for their words of encouragement. I especially thank the speaker of the day, Dr. Gokul Raj, for his valuable inputs and lucid presentation on the future advancements of nanotechnology, especially on the biological and medical aspects, which is the need of the hour in this pandemic situation. Finally, I thank you all, the participants, for your active cooperation. Stay home, stay safe. Dear